that's been moderated sufficiently that the Freedom Caucus won't be interested in it anymore. And the Republicans may not be able to get enough votes in the House to pass it, and then we've sort of stopped it from happening, and we can move forward. We're just going to have to see how it develops. My fantasy might be that it would end up, because you get Democrats and Republicans kind of brokering it in the Senate, that it would actually be a pretty good bill, because it would fall in the category of strengthening and improving as opposed to repealing. And then you might have Democrats who would be willing to support it. Chances of that are pretty small, but we're just going to have to see how it evolves. What I will tell you in the meantime is that Tom Price at HHS and the president, there's a lot of things they can do, frankly they're already doing them, to undermine the health exchanges and the Affordable Care Act administratively and create a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of some of these insurance pools going into a death spiral. The latest thing is that Trump will not commit, for example, except on a like month-by-month basis, to spending money on these cost-sharing reduction dollars, which help reduce out-of-pocket costs for people in the exchanges, deductible costs, co-payments, and so forth. They're not enforcing the individual mandate in terms of people buying into the insurance pool. The increase in the health exchange in Maryland, which was a 52% proposal from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and they came and explained to me why that was, 25% out of that 52 was attributable to the fact that the administration is not enforcing the individual mandate. And so they're worried that young people, in particular, younger, healthier people, are going to look at it and say, well, if my premium is going to go up this much, and there's no penalty for me not buying into the insurance pool, I'm not going to do it. And so the thing starts to unravel as an insurance pool. So even as we're focused, my point is on the statutory sort of evolution of this thing, we have to be paying attention and trying to raise the alarm about what Trump and Price are doing inside the agencies.
I understand that, but
yeah. Well, what can we do? We have the ability in these committees, you know, when there's a bill coming through or there's a markup or there's a hearing, every Democrat has the right to speak for 5 minutes and raise Cain about it. We can organize in this tag team way with outside organizations. So for example, when I was in the hearing on the first go-round of the health care bill, I might have mentioned this, that went 27 hours straight. We went through the night, and I think it was the longest continuous hearing ever of a standing committee. During that 27-hour period, the American Medical Association came out against the bill, the American Hospital Association, AARP, the National Nurses Association, Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we were really doing a tag team with the outside group, raising an alarm. Now, we're expecting to get a Congressional Budget Office score on the new bill, which is not going to be any better, I don't think, than the old one. It'll give us a number, and then we can go out and use that number like we did in the first round. And again, the effort will be to focus on the Senate. But look, we don't have the gavel, so we have to use the people. We have to work in concert with one another and educate folks. What was fascinating about the first round of health care bill is, by the time it got to a vote, which they didn't take, I think 63% of Americans said we're against their proposal, and only 70% of Americans supported it, and that's because we were getting the information out to people. So that's the primary thing that I think we can and have to do right now to push back on their agenda.
So I kind of see as it has evolved how people influence the legislation and the HCA, that sort of thing. The things that are happening in our country that worry me even more, if you can believe it, more than losing health with Obamacare, are losing the tenets of and foundation of democracy. And I feel a lot less certain what we as people and you as members of Congress do to fight the secrecy that you refer to, shades down, rules changed behind the curtain. I understand that you've taken the lead on collecting letters that members of Congress have written to agencies to get information and nobody in these agencies is responding. I know I've written to a lot of federal agencies, and I used to work for one. It was my job to respond to correspondence. I get letters back that say, thank you for writing. Nothing else. Nothing that even addresses what the topic was I wrote about. And I'm frustrated, and I'm not sure if your card addresses, what do we do about those things?
Well, as you say, I'm now chairing something called the Democracy Reform Task Force, which is focusing on what laser on the lack of accountability, the conflicts of interest, the ethical blindness that characterizes. I'm doing that because I think transparency and accountability goes to the heart of our democracy, and it's impossible for the president, under circumstances where he won't divest of his business assets, where he won't be candid with the American people, for him to make decisions without having divided loyalties. And that's the fundamental question. When he goes to make a decision on important policies, whether it's a foreign policy or domestic policy issue, his mind should be only thinking about what's in the public's interest. But because of all of these entanglements that he has, because of his failure to observe the minimal boundaries of what it means to hold that office, somewhere in his brain, other things are operating. And he's going to lean, I worry, he'll lean in the direction of advancing a business interest or some other benefit for his family and his brand and his friends and all the rest of it. So, what we're trying to do is every single day provide information to the public about these conflicts. We don't think it's going to be the thing that suddenly creates an aha moment for people, but as a steady kind of drip, 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 you need to understand this has happened and why it matters. I think it can be effective, particularly when you add the other injuries that he's inflicting on people. And it goes fundamentally to this. A lot of people, I get this because I've been working on campaign finance reform for years, and I have studied how angry and disillusioned and cynical the public has become when they look at Washington and think the special interests are in charge, money runs the show, insiders call the shots. And I got to tell you, a lot of the time that's true. People are right to feel powerless. And so along comes Donald Trump. And he says, remember at the convention, he said, I am your voice. It's a direct quote, I am your voice. You're feeling left out and powerless, I am your voice. And there were people angry enough with the system that they said, you know what? Let him go. Let him go try to drain the swamp. I mean, it's ridiculous when you look at what he's doing. But they gave him the power. And what we need to say to them is, don't give your power to Donald Trump. Don't give it to Hillary Clinton, John Sarbanes, or anybody else. You've got to hold your power. You have the ability to impose accountability on this president. And if you think he's breaking promises, you need to start telegraphing them. If not directly to him because he can't hear it, telegraph it to members of Congress who need to be accountable for the actions that he's taking. And eventually, I think what's going to happen is people are going to start saying, maybe this guy isn't really looking out for me and my family. Maybe he's just looking out for himself, his business, and his friend. And a lot of this anger that sort of was being channeled through him may begin to be channeled at him. It will not happen overnight. But I think the people are beginning to step back, even people who supported him, and say, I'm a little nervous about this. Why won't he release his tax returns? What's in there? I mean, 80% of Americans want to see those. Because the fact of not releasing them makes you wonder, what's he got to hide? Right. And this is, I can continue to sort of nag at people, and we just got to keep giving them more information. That's what I'm trying to do as head of this task force.
Congressman, before you arrived, Senator Zucker told us that if we were fortunate enough to have a representative who actually was doing the right thing, we ought to be sure and thank them. And so in that spirit, I want to bring up that as a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, you've been dealing with some legislation being pushed by Exelon and other big power companies that would make it easier for them to get their hydropower dams relicensed.
Right.
But it would make it almost impossible for the state of Maryland to enforce the Clean Water Act to protect the Chesapeake Bay, for state and federal agencies to protect wildlife and endangered species. And you've been fighting that legislation, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
The AFG, we're the federal unions that have been taking on the chin by the late, you know, your committees and the House, we lost every battle we've been up against. We have people from Texas who have never shown any inclination at all in our labor. All of a sudden come up with these wonderful things that they're trying to take away from us. Now they're getting to the point where they're bringing in groups to basically throw us out of our jobs on just them thinking they can do it. And right now before the Senate. What we're asking is, we know they've passed already by the House. Mr. Cox testified, he's the president, has testified, tried his very best. What do you see happening as far as our basically being, they're trying to basically union bust?
And they've been trying to do union busting and sort of degrading the federal workforce and the capacity of our federal agencies for years. And ever since I've been there, this has been a top priority for the Republicans. Now, as we say, they have the gavel in both the House and the Senate, so their ability to advance that agenda is measurably increased. We're going to fight, the Democrats are going to fight as hard as we can in the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, which I serve on, in the House. And